From downtown Detroit, Local 4 Live starts right now. From downtown Detroit, Local 4 Live starts right now.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Local 4 Live. I'm Nick Monticelli. Thank you for joining us on Local 4 Plus and on YouTube or streaming on clickondetroit.com, which, by the way, if you need to get us out the door and in your car, that's where you can stream us as well. Just don't watch us while you're driving. Listen, like a podcast. Let's talk about some of the conversations we have this morning. We're going to start in Macomb County, an important discussion with Selfridge Air National Guard Base as it celebrates 108 years of military power on that base. Then we're talking name, image, and likeness as college athletics can now begin to share up to $20 million in revenue to student athletes. And later, you probably heard the breaking news yesterday. The WNBA is coming to Detroit. We're going to talk with the former president of the WNBA about the needs for women's professional basketball, not only in our city, but throughout the country as well. Keeping a live look now on LCA, the Detroit Red Wings getting ready to celebrate an important milestone there. It is the centennial for the winged wheel. And this morning, a trivia question for you. How many Red Wings players are in the Hall of Fame? You can see that question if we get it up there on your screen. There it is. That's our question of the day. The QR code there is on the bottom. Head to clickondetroit.com/vote as well if you'd like to. So either go to clickondetroit/vote or scan the QR code. That's how you can participate in today's question of the day. So far, let's see, 50% of you voting that there are currently 58 players in the Hall of Fame. We'll reveal the answer a little bit later on in the show. Let's start with some of your headlines on this Tuesday. A live look now at the Senate floor. Right now, lawmakers are in the middle of a vote-a-rama. That means senators can offer unlimited amendments on the bills, and they have to vote on them all. All of this centered around President Trump's budget bill. Democrats are doing everything they can to delay the vote. The GOP has a razor-thin margin of error here. They only have 3 votes to spare, and right now they may not have the votes needed to pass by the self-imposed July 4th deadline. Many GOP lawmakers are on the fence about the bill, saying it could hurt the states they represent. If the bill does pass, it has to head back to the House, where it also faces an uncertain fate. That back and forth in the Senate causing a little bit of whiplash for stock futures, as you see right here. Investors are waiting to see what happens with that bill. Also, investors seeing if futures will hold following Monday's decision from Canada to walk back its digital services tax. Over the weekend, that tax had President Trump announcing he was stopping trade negotiations with our neighbors to the north. Traders also looking ahead for several reports expected today that look at the manufacturing sector and the job openings and labor turnover survey. That survey measures employment, layoffs, and job openings here in the U.S. Okay, our first conversation today, a history lesson. On this date in 1971, the Michigan National Guard took control of Selfridge Air National Guard Base, but let's go back even further. It was 1916 when Henry Joy, who was the president of the Packard Motor Car Company, bought the land along Lake St. Clair to begin building airplane engines that would be used in World War I. By 1917, the U.S. was at war, and the government was looking for places to train military pilots. They settled on Joy Aviation Field, and on July 1st, 1917, the Michigan National Guard officially took over the field and gave it to the U.S. Army. Joy Aviation Field was then renamed Selfridge Field after Lieutenant Thomas Selfridge, who was the first person killed. Fast forward to July 1st, 1971, another big change happening. The Army gave Selfridge to the Michigan Air National Guard, becoming the first active Air Force base to be run by the Guard. Today, July 1st, 2025, the base has every branch of the military except the Space Force. It also has the U.S. Border Patrol. Right now, current active missions are the A-10 Thunderbolts, the KC-135 refueling tankers, and the CH-47 Chinook helicopters, and more missions are on the way. There's a new mission of KC-46 refueling tankers that will take over the retiring KC-135s, and earlier this year, President Trump announced a new fleet of F-15EX Eagle II jets that will lead Selfridge into the future. Joining me now to talk more about how Selfridge Air National Guard Base went from just an airfield in Macomb County to one of the oldest and, let's just say, one of the best airfields in the country, Major General Paul D. Rogers. He's the Adjutant General of the Michigan Air National Guard. Thank you so much for joining me, Paul. First of all, we here in Metro Detroit, and especially out in Macomb County, for the folks out there, there's this immense pride about Selfridge because it is a phenomenal base, but I think that pride kind of extends throughout the area, don't you think?
Oh, absolutely. And good morning. Good morning, Nick. I appreciate the opportunity to speak with you today and your audience. There is a great deal of pride within the entire community, and that's what makes Selfridge truly special. We got great women and men working there in uniform, civilians supporting them. Great mission set, but the community support, the way it embraces Selfridge really is unique across the country, and it makes it a very, very special place.
We just went through the history and, dating back to the early 1900s. Do you think people realize what a key piece of land and how key that field was even back to World War I?
Well, first of all, Nick, I compliment you on your history lesson there. I thought I was going to have to do that, and I was starting to sweat and get a little nervous I'd mess up the dates, but you did a phenomenal job. I think people in that general community really appreciate the importance of Selfridge, and that's why they fight so hard to maintain Selfridge as a very active and vibrant facility. But as you move away from the immediate surrounding area, I don't know that people realize how critically important it is. With the refueling mission and with the fighter mission, it is absolutely critical to our national defense. It was during the Cold War as it protected our national assets with our industrial base. And now as we start to look at growing aggression from China and Russia, that polar defense and homeland defense of anything that would come over the Arctic is critically important. And Selfridge is specifically positioned to protect not only the industrial heartland, but also the East Coast.
Well, so speaking of that, I kind of want to dive more into the physical geographic location of the base. I know that's something that you brought up multiple times when you were at the Pentagon fighting for the future of Selfridge. The governor had that discussion, and even President Trump had mentioned that. How key do you think just where we're physically located for the base is a portion of why the new mission is there and why it's been so successful in past operations as well?
Yeah, the geographic location is absolutely critical. And if you look at global vulnerabilities to the United States, to the heartland, to the East Coast, other than ocean approaches with submarines, it is that Arctic approach. And so we are positioned ideally for defense of the homeland, and having the ability to scramble and then sustain aircraft in the air out of Selfridge is a key part of that national security. And that's why we fought so hard from a national security perspective. The economics matter, the impacts to jobs in Michigan matter, but we primarily exist for national defense and defense of the homeland. And that's why we fought so hard for that.
What's interesting, too, is that I think people sometimes forget how fast your jets can go. I mean, even looking at September 11th, the attacks on 9/11, you scrambled jets and you had fighters over on the East Coast within minutes, didn't you?
There were aircraft in the air, and back then, we had F-16s. We had two squadrons of F-16s, and then through the BRAC of 2005, we lost those F-16s, and the A-10s migrated over from Battle Creek, along with the refuelers from the Air Force Reserve over to the Air National Guard here in Michigan. So, back then we were part of that national defense with the F-16s, and with the F-15EXs coming in, we'll be a critical part of the future national defense and homeland security mission.
All right, we've been talking a lot about the future of Selfridge and what's happening. Paul, we're going to take a very short break here, maybe 90 seconds. When we come back, I want to talk more about the future here because you worked so hard to get the new refueling mission and the F-15s. We'll continue in just a moment.
Excellent.
Welcome back to Local 4 Live, everybody. Major General Paul D. Rogers, the Adjutant General of the Michigan Air National Guard, joining us again. Paul, I want to continue this conversation about the future of Selfridge here. The F-15EXs that you and the governor worked so hard and President Trump officially declared a few months ago was huge, or is huge, not just in terms of national defense, but also about the base itself. I recall you and I having a very frank discussion that there were some very serious discussions at the Air Force level about not necessarily shutting down portions of the base, but maybe selling off and privatizing portions of the base. You call them bean counters because accountants are everywhere, right? They're always looking at those numbers. Do you think that this mission, having both the refueling tankers and the fighter jets, ends that conversation, or do you think there's still some uncertainty?
No, it absolutely ends that conversation and turns it to a conversation of investment. So we just hosted a large, over 120 Air Force leaders that were looking at the future of Selfridge just a few weeks ago. And what came out of their planning and assessment is that Selfridge is going to be the recipient of $1 billion of investment for infrastructure improvements, new hangars, new simulation centers, new electrical grid to support all of that investment. So we went from having to defend against discussions of reducing the size of the airfield to now putting $1 billion of investment into Selfridge. It's really an exciting opportunity. It's really exciting, and that's over the next 5 years. So it's not like it's a 20-year $1 billion. It's the next 5 years. And those are great jobs for our skilled trades, our professional trades within the construction arena. It's an investment in the civilian workforce. So the entire discussion has changed because of one simple decision.
It's unbelievable. Can you talk more about the infrastructure behind the scenes? I know some people might just think it's easy to swap out fighter jets, but you have to do everything from increase the electricity there to lengthen the runways, don't you?
Really, yeah, you're correct. The utility infrastructure is very old. It's from the 50s, 60s, 70s. So refreshing that entire infrastructure is going to be key. for the longevity of the facility and the efficient operation of the facility. And then that tower for that airfield is actually the backup tower for the Cleveland FAA tower. So if anything were to happen with the Cleveland tower for air traffic in this region of the country, that mission set would be handed over to the folks working in the tower at Selfridge Air National Guard Base. So there's so many different connections between the resilience of our civilian air traffic, all the way to our preparation and active defense of the homeland.
Well, I had no idea we were the backup to Cleveland, but breaking news there. All right. In terms of the pilots, I'm sure there's a learning curve there. Do you get new pilots in to fly the F-15EXs, or do you retrain the current ones, or a combination of both?
This is a totally different aircraft. It has a entirely different mission set. It does air-to-air combat. It has a very advanced radar system. So the proficiency in flying this is very different than the A-10s. What we're going to be doing is actively recruiting new pilots. We're going to also be trying to recruit very, very experienced F-15EX pilots from around the country to come in as instructor pilots. But then we're also going to be looking at our current cadre of pilots and retraining them, reclassifying them. Their reclassification will take a minimum of a year because of the significant differences in the aircraft. And then it's going to take probably 2 years of training to build that proficiency. A new pilot is going to be 4 to 5 years. So we need to start now in order to be ready for that 28, 29 time period when these aircraft start showing up on Selfridge.
Well, and that was my last question for you here. So the timeline is, another about 4 years for the actually to arrive and get them in the air, because I know another conversation is just having them manufactured.
Absolutely. And I'll tell you that the diligence of our community members and focus of our elected officials, post decision, we can't rest on our laurels now, because we need to continue to advocate strongly to get these aircraft here in 2028. That's initially, there's a couple plans. One has them arriving in 28. That's the one we support. Then there's some discussions about delaying to 29, and I don't like that at all. We need to get them here, get them on the base, get our own pilots flying those aircraft, and then building that proficiency. So FY28 is going to be a very important part of our plan going forward, and working with our state legislators to make sure we maintain the investments in the infrastructure around the new airfield. That's something the state has been leading on,
right.
And then working closely with our federal delegation to make sure that the money show up for the military construction. Anything that delays the arrival of that aircraft is a threat, and I am very laser focused on preventing those threats from materializing.
All right. Major General Paul Rogers, thank you so much for joining us this morning on Local 4 Live. It was a big win for you, for the community, for Selfridge as a whole, and we cannot wait to see those F-15s here in a couple of years.
Well, thank you, Nick, and thank you to your viewers that are supporters of Selfridge. It was the strength of community that really helped deliver the victory at the end of the day. So thank you all for the support and advocacy.
All right. Thank you, sir.
Okay.